Hello everyone and welcome back to Rising Sign Astrology. In today's video, we're diving deep into one of the biggest collective shifts of 2025 and 2026. And it's the movement of the North Node into Pisces and the South Node into Virgo. This axis is all about letting go of control, letting go of analysis paralysis, and ultimately perfectionism. And learning to trust, surrender, and flow with life's rhythms and have more trust in those areas. We're going to start with a quick breakdown of what this nodal shift means, including some historical context of when it happened last, and also the kinds of themes that tend to rise up both collectively and personally. Then we'll go sign by sign so you can see exactly how this energy will play out for your chart and your life. Now, when you listen to the breakdowns, I strongly recommend you start with your rising sign because that's the main character in your story of life. It shows how transits hit your actual lived experience and physical world. After that, check your sun sign. It speaks to your soul's direction, your identity, and often your career path. And lastly, listen for your moon sign because that's going to tell you how you emotionally experience these changes, especially in the areas of home, family, and your inner world. And if you're enjoying the content, feel free to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss future videos. And if you find these insights helpful, a quick like or a comment really helps support the channel, and it tells the algorithm that this is worth sharing with other astrology lovers. All right, let's get into it. So, before we dive into how the nodal shift affects each rising sign, let's zoom out a bit and understand what the North Node and the South Node actually are, and what they mean for all of us on a collective level. First, the nodes of the moon are not planets. They're mathematical points. They mark where the moon's orbit intersects with the path of the sun, also known as the ecliptic. And when the sun and the moon align near these points, we get eclipses. So right away, you know that these points carry a real sense of fate and destiny and even karmic redirection. They're not light or casual transits. Now, here's something that's important. The nodes move backwards through the zodiac, while planets move in a direct order, right? Aries to Taurus to Gemini and so on, the nodes move in reverse. So we're just coming out of a North Node in Aries, South Node in Libra cycle, and now entering the Pisces Virgo axis cycle. And the nodes change signs every 18 months or so. And when they do, it's time to dig deep into the layers of life and really look at where things are going from a soul evolution perspective, because they're putting you on a path that brings you closer to your ultimate destiny. Now, the North Node shows where you're headed. It's your growth. It's the new energy that we're leaning into and being called on to embody. And it's not always easy. It feels unfamiliar, but it pulls us towards a greater purpose in our lives. And the South Node, by contrast, shows where we've been. It shows what's familiar, even overdeveloped areas. And it represents our comfort zone. It's the default setting that we come into this world with. And the karma that we're being asked to release is often where the South Node is, right? We're being called to evolve in that area or just integrate it in a more healthier way. So from January of 2025 to July of 2026, the North Node will move through Pisces and the South Node will move through Virgo. And this nodal axis is all about learning to let go of those Virgo characteristics like perfectionism and control and overanalysis. And it's being asked to have you embrace Pisces themes, right? Surrender, faith, compassion, creativity, right? All of those traits that Pisces embody when they're at their best. And if you have natal planets in the houses that the nodes are moving through, it's going to be even more karmic and more profound for you, especially if they're hitting and crossing over natal planets like Saturn, Jupiter, your sun, or moon. And if you have that, I would recommend reaching out for a reading just to learn more about what this karmic shift means for you. But to give you a sense of how this might unfold, let's look back at the last time the nodes were in this exact position. And that would take us back to June of 2006 till December of 2007. Because it's roughly 18 and a half years for the nodes to complete and come back to a sign again. So when I look back at that time, there are several major global events that really reflected that Virgo Pisces dynamic that was at play. The first one is around mental health and addiction. And awareness in those areas in the public and the collective rose very sharply, including issues around PTSD, anxiety, even the opioid epidemic gained a lot more public attention in the country. And Pisces governs mental health and escapism, while Virgo deals with healing and service and medicine. Another area, looking back, that was pretty substantial was Apple launching its first ever iPhone, right? This happened in 2007. And what the iPhone really did was the first of its kind in dissolving the boundaries between the physical and digital realities, right? Up until that time, phones were, keypads and flip phones. And yes, you could get on the internet, but nowhere near just the seamless experience that the iPhone brought about. And Pisces rules, right, the blurring of the boundaries, the collective unconscious, and connection through non-physical means. Now, another example would be we started seeing early stages of the global financial crisis that really came to fruition in 2008. Right, it was the beginning of the collapse of different mortgage lenders, and just the fact that there was a deep imbalance in the financial systems, they started to become very, very visible to people. And Virgo represents structure and function and order, and Pisces dissolves and is there to remind us that not all problems can be solved with spreadsheets and checklists. So that was interesting. And you're starting to see some of that now as well. I would say another area that was pretty prominent at that time was just an intensified consciousness around environmental issues, right? If you look back, it was a time when Al Gore came out with The Inconvenient Truth that made a lot of waves, got a lot of attention. I think it won an Oscar or even a Nobel Peace Prize. It was very popular. And Virgo is a sign that cares very deeply about the earth and practical action. And Pisces would weave in, moral and spiritual awareness to that cause as well. So I think we'll start to see similar themes in that regard, as well as it relates to environmental issues, in addition to some of the, the global financial themes. But, we're going to be in this axis from, 2025 to 2026, so we can expect similar collective themes. Perhaps the unraveling of control systems that are just too rigid, or a call towards spiritual healing and just increased emotional sensitivity in individuals, that Piscean influence, and just a reminder on a global level that things like faith and imagination and surrendering to something bigger than yourself and spirituality are needed in this world. They're not weaknesses. And I know this shift technically began around January 12th of 2025, and you may already be seeing its effects. But there's still a long way to go, and the reality is I didn't have a YouTube channel at that time when it started. And I really felt compelled to, do a video on this topic. And I do feel it's an important one to cover, especially now. And I wanted to offer my perspective on it. So Before we get into each sign breakdown, I do want to point out that in Vedic astrology, the north and the south node of the moon are a little different, and they're known as Rahu and Ketu, respectively. So the north node would be Rahu, the south node Ketu. And similar to Western astrology, they're not celestial bodies, right? They're mathematical points. But in the Vedic tradition, Rahu and Ketu are treated as powerful planets, even shadow planets. And they're viewed as having very deep karmic and spiritual significance. They're strongly tied to themes of destiny and transformation. And their story comes from ancient Hindu mythology, right? According to the legend of the churning of the cosmic ocean, the gods produced a nectar of immortality. And the story goes that a demon disguised himself as a god in order to take a sip of that nectar. But before it could pass fully through him, Lord Vishnu decapitated him. But because he had already tasted the nectar, he didn't die. Instead, his body was split into two. And that's how we got Rahu and Ketu. The head became Rahu, representing desire and craving, right? He's depicted as the dragon head without a body. And the body became Ketu, representing separation and detachment, and is depicted as a dragon body without a head. And ever since then, Rahu and Ketu have been said to chase the sun and the moon across the sky. And when they catch them, we experience eclipses. And that's the mythology. But from a practical standpoint, Rahu and Ketu in Vedic astrology are both considered malefics, right? Not because they're evil, but because they bring a lot of challenges, instability, and even spiritual tests. Rahu represents the head of the serpent, and with it, an all-consuming desire towards material ambition, the illusion of this world, and just obsession. Rahu represents all of those things. And it rules over things like fame and foreign influence, technology, even addiction, as well as taboo subjects. And Rahu is known for quick, fast, overnight success. But it doesn't mean that it's lasting. And Rahu pushes you towards things that you've never experienced before. Things that you may crave deeply on a soul level. Perhaps it was a wish that was not fulfilled from a past life. And you may crave these things deeply, but may not fully understand why you do. And it could be that past life connection. And its energy is very intense and very unorthodox. In fact, in a birth chart, depending upon the house, when Rahu is paired with Mars in a tight conjunction, this energy creates serial killers. But that's a tangent. Anyway, like I said, the energy is very intense and very unorthodox. And it often leads to breakthroughs, but also just as easily, if not more, to disillusionment. In Vedic tradition, Rahu is what keeps us trapped in the cycle of reincarnation. It keeps us attached to the material world and the illusion of Maya. Now, Ketu, the tail of the serpent, is the opposite. It represents what you've already mastered in past lives or early on in this one. And it's tied to themes of detachment, intuition, renunciation, and spiritual liberation. Ketu governs things like psychic ability, mystical experiences, loss, disconnection, and the death of the ego. And it often makes you disinterested in the material world, withdrawing from the very things that Rahu chases. So while Rahu wants to expand and consume, right, it's a head without a body, Ketu wants to dissolve and transcend and help to separate you from this illusion of Maya. It's why when a person experiences a Ketu Mahadasha period, it brings great karmic reckonings and is a period when people struggle with finances, the material world, and earning. It's Ketu wanting to show you the truth of this world and pull you out of that Rahu illusion. Now, you can see already that's a key difference between Western and Vedic interpretation. The tone is completely off, right? Or different. In Western astrology, the North Node is seen as this point of growth, this point of purpose, while the South Node is your comfort zone or something to release, but not necessarily bad. But in Vedic astrology, both Rahu and Ketu are seen as karmic disruptors. They bring chaos, not peace. And Rahu can grant a lot of worldly success. In the Vedic tradition, if you have Rahu in your second house, these people are oftentimes wealthy, to the point of they don't know what to do with their money, as long as there's no other, negative influences on that house or with Rahu. But like I said, Rahu often grants worldly success, but then takes it away. And Ketu can strip everything from you and leaving you feeling empty until you realize that it's guiding you towards something deeper. It wants to strip away all of the illusions and bring you closer to God. But in essence, Rahu and Ketu are karmic forces. They're not here to make life easy, but to ensure that the soul evolves so it can eventually transcend out of the cycle of reincarnation. And Rahu shows what you're hungry for. Ketu shows what you need to let go of. And together they mark this destiny path and the baggage that you need to release as you walk it. So I wanted to include that because it is a bit of a, differentiation point from Western astrology. And it's fascinating. Now, I also want to point out before we jump to individual rising signs that if you have your rising sign or sun in Pisces or Virgo, I think it could be very worthwhile to get a personalized reading. And I'm not saying you have to come to me. You could go to any astrologer. And the reason is that the transit is moving directly across your axis of identity and purpose. And that means it's going to be especially significant for your personal soul growth and your life direction, and even how others perceive you. And it's not limited to just your sun or rising sign, right? If you have Pisces or Virgo on the cusp of key houses, like your 10th house of career or your 7th house of partnerships, 2nd house of income, right? Then this transit is going to hit those areas of your life with extra force. And the nodal axis brings karmic lessons as well as destined events. But it can also bring deep shifts. And when it moves through a sensitive point in your chart, you're likely to feel it very personally, in an almost life-defining way. Any mutable signs would benefit as well because of the squares that this is creating. But I just wanted to call that out because while a general video is a great place to start, if the axis is touching a major part of your personal chart or hitting major personal planets, then you're gonna feel the pressure much more profoundly. Maybe you feel heightened levels of confusion, and in those instances, a personalized session can give you a lot of clarity and insight around what's happening, the timing, and just the deeper context that an individual's chart really deserves. So with that said, let's jump into the zodiac signs and how this is going to affect you for the next year or so. Okay, Aries rising. So for you, this nodal shift is hitting a very sensitive and pivotal part of your chart. It's the axis of doing versus being, of control versus surrender. With the South Node moving through your 6th house in Virgo, you're being asked to let go of your attachment to perfectionism, to overfunctioning and constant busyness. You may have built your identity on being the person who just handles it all, who gets it done, and is able to hold the chaos together with structure and routines. But during this time, clinging too tightly to those habits will only leave you feeling exhausted, anxious, and out of alignment. The 6th house governs daily work, routines, health, habits, and your relationship to service in general. So the South Node here can highlight where you've taken on too much responsibility, whether it's at work, in your physical body, or in how you show up for others. You might experience literal burnout or disruptions to your sleep, or health issues that are going to force you to slow down. Alternatively, work systems that once kept you grounded may suddenly now start to feel unsatisfying or even overwhelming. You may also become more aware of the downside of perfectionism, right? There's such thing as toxic perfectionism. And the voice in your head that tells you things have to be just right or you failed may begin to get silenced at this time. And here's the shift, right? The North Node is calling you more into your 12th house of Pisces, the house of rest and surrender and spirituality. It's the house of the unseen. This is the place in your chart that has nothing to do with tangible success or routine productivity. It rules your connection to the divine, to your unconscious, your dream world, and even past life karma. So you're being asked to let go of control and start trusting something bigger than yourself. And that might sound a little abstract, especially to an Aries, but it becomes very real in your daily life. And this transit is asking you to learn how to rest without feeling guilty, and how to recognize that being still is okay and can also be productive. You may feel pulled to explore spiritual practices at this time, right? Whether that's meditation or dream work or prayer, even therapy, or just simply spending more time alone or in nature. It's a time to declutter not just your physical space, but also your mind and your energy. You're being called to learn how to protect your inner peace. And you may also find yourself needing more solitude at this time. And even if it feels uncomfortable at first, go with it. Don't resist the urge. It really is part of what the universe is asking you to focus on at this time. Now, the 12th house can also bring up suppressed emotions or unresolved grief and karmic patterns that surface in subtle but also powerful ways. It's not uncommon during this transit to feel more emotionally raw, more introspective, or even feeling at times like you're lost. And that's part of the North Node's work, right? It's looking to strip away what isn't essential so you can focus and hear what your soul is trying to tell you. So instead of asking yourself, what do I need to get done today? You're being asked to consider, what do I need to release today? And practically, this means adjusting your schedule to create that space. So if your calendar is packed with back-to-back meetings or, just overflowing with chores and daily routine responsibilities, then you're working against the energy of the transit, and it's going to be harder. So cut out things that are non-essential. Learn to say no, not just to others, but to your own inner pressure, where a lot of this is coming from. And trust that taking care of your nervous system is more important now than trying to prove yourself to everybody. You might find that healing through nature, through water, like going to the beach or to the lake, or other Piscean themes like music and poetry, right? Anything that helps make you feel connected to something larger than yourself and your ego is going to be very helpful and healing at this time. You may also need to come to terms with areas in life where you need to just manage everything, where you feel like you have to maintain control and handle everything. Because sometimes, taken to an extreme, service becomes martyrdom. Sometimes discipline ends up being a form of self-punishment. And being on top of everything can become a mask for a deeper inner anxiety in folks. And then people become the martyr. So the gift of this transit is that it shows up, right? And is going to gently guide you to let go in those areas. You're in a season where the most courageous thing that you can do is allow yourself to let go, to surrender, and trust that The rest, the solitude, and the inner reflection are not weaknesses, but they're necessary parts of your evolution. The answers that you're seeking now are not going to come from grinding harder, right? They're going to come when you finally give yourself permission to just be, right? To exist. And as an Aries rising with the North Node transiting your 12th house in Pisces, it's encouraging you to step away from constant doing and embrace the rest and spiritual connection. But what makes the transit especially potent is that Jupiter, the ruler of Pisces, is currently in your 4th house in Cancer, where it's exalted. So it's operating with extra strength and support. And the 4th house rules home, emotional security, and your private inner life. So this placement offers a deeply nurturing foundation for your 12th house journey. It tells me that as you lean into solitude and healing and exploring the spiritual world, you're also growing emotionally, possibly reconnecting with family and strengthening your sense of inner safety, or even improving your home environment in some way to make it that sanctuary for yourself. And it's a time to retreat with purpose and trust that the quiet work that you do now, both emotionally and spiritually, is laying the groundwork for long-term peace and growth in your life. And Jupiter transiting your 4th is going to remind you simultaneously that home is within yourself, right? And it's the most powerful place that you can operate from. So by the end of this cycle in mid-2026, if you lean into the work, you're going to find that you're not only have rebuilt your relationship with your spirit and your body and spiritual connection, but have also found peace in the spaces where you used to feel empty. So it's not a time to prove anything to anybody. It's a time to heal and release and reconnect with the part of you that doesn't need to earn your worth through service or doing. So let go of the checklist, choose some rest over constant hustle, and let go of some of the control and trust that things are going to work out. And that's where your growth is right now, and it's where you're being called to focus. So if this was helpful and you're seeing signs of this already, please drop a comment below and let us all know. And good luck. Now, as a Taurus rising, the South Node is moving through your 5th house of Virgo, while the North Node is traveling through your 11th house of Pisces. And this is going to last from 2025 all the way through to mid-2026. And this nodal axis is shifting your focus away from personal expression and towards collective connection. The 5th house is where we seek pleasure, creativity, romance, recognition. It's the house of children. It's, it's also sometimes control over the things that we've created, whether that's a project, a relationship, or a child. So with the South Node here, you're being asked to loosen your grip on the need for personal validation and creative control. You may feel that the usual sources of joy no longer satisfy you the way they used to, or that your romantic life or creative energy just feels flat, or like it's overly critiqued, and you're burdened by some self-imposed standards in that area. And this could show up as needing to release a tendency to overmanage your children, if you have them, or to let go of perfectionist expectations around children, or love, or artistic output. You might feel more aware of how you need to be seen, right? Maybe you have a need to be admired, or to keep things just right. And that's actually getting in the way of your genuine joy and fulfillment in life. That's the South Node calling you to evolve beyond self-centered or overly rigid forms of self-expression. Now, at the same time, the North Node is in your 11th house of Pisces, and it's pulling you towards a new kind of growth, one that's bigger than just you. The 11th house governs your social circles, your long-term goals, your friendships, and the communities and causes that you align yourself with. this is where your growth opportunity lies. So, in opening yourself up to people and spaces where collaboration and shared ideals and emotional support matter more than personal recognition, you're going to benefit. And it's a real shift from what do I want to create for myself to how can I contribute to something bigger than me. And during this time, you may feel called to connect with more spiritually minded folks or more creative or compassionate groups. All of those Piscean traits. It could mean becoming involved with a cause or building an online community or joining an artistic or healing collective. Or, simply shifting your goals towards something more inclusive or imaginative, right? You're learning how to let go of goals that are driven by the ego and instead build something that is both inspired and visionary, not just by yourself, but together with others. Now, practically speaking, this means you may need to loosen your attachment to old dreams that were all about individual success, right? Instead, you're being called to open up to goals that benefit a wider circle at this time. So collaborate more, ask for help, trust in the group processes, even if they're less efficient than just doing it all yourself. And it's also important to be around people who just feel aligned, not those that can just help you climb a ladder or a corporate ladder. And it's a time where intuition and emotional connection should really guide your networking and future planning, not just strategy or like cold hard analytics. Because you're being called to stop perfecting this stage of performance and to start engaging with the audience, by the 11th house. So the more you let yourself flow with others and the more you're going to find your purpose is expanding. And you don't need to do it alone or even be the center of it all to be valuable within these groups. And as a Taurus rising, right, the North Node transiting your 11th house of Pisces is encouraging you to expand your social networks, embrace community, and align with dreams that feel emotionally meaningful rather than just practical. However, what really strengthens this shift is that Jupiter, the ruler of Pisces, is in your 3rd house of Cancer, where it's exalted. And it's offering strong support for communication and learning and local connections. So this means that your ability to grow through your community or long-term goals is directly supported by how you express yourself and how you share your ideas and build your everyday relationships. So during this time, conversations can open very unexpected doors, and your words are going to carry more emotional impact than usual. So writing, speaking, teaching, and simply opening up more with those around you can really help align you with the right people and opportunities at this time. So don't underestimate the power of your voice or the ripple effect of sharing something that's important to you from the heart. Because with the presence of Jupiter, it's showing you that even small interactions can lead to very big shifts in your vision for the future. And by the end of this cycle, you're going to discover that your most meaningful joy and fulfillment are now coming from shared dreams, not just solo wins. So let go of the pressure to impress everyone and try to show up for something that benefits the collective, because that's where you're being called to go. Now, you've been in this energy for a little while, and if this resonated or you're starting to see signs of this already, please drop a comment below and let us know how everything's going. I'd be very interested to hear. And good luck. Okay, my Gemini rising. So, as a Gemini rising, the South Node is moving through your 4th house of Virgo, while the North Node is traveling through your 10th house of Pisces. And this is going to continue all the way through to mid-2026. And this shift is pulling you out of your comfort zone at home. and asking you to stretch into a more public, purposeful role in the world. The fourth house represents your private life, your home, your family, your roots, even your emotional security, and it's just the innermost foundation that you build your life on. So with the south node here, you may feel pulled to retreat, to stay small, or to maybe overmanage your home life in a way that ultimately becomes limiting. You might notice a tendency to overthink your emotional needs or nitpick family dynamics, or put so much energy into managing your inner world at home that you resist stepping into your full potential outside of it in the world. And this transit may bring up unresolved issues around home and family, as well as family expectations, or even emotional habits that you picked up in childhood that are now just holding you back. There's nothing wrong with wanting security, but this is a time when clinging too tightly to what feels familiar, especially if it's out of fear, can block your growth. The South Node in Virgo here may make you feel overly focused on keeping things in order in your private life, right? Those Virgoan traits, but it would make you focus on it to the point that even if the order is built on avoidance or anxiety, that you would ignore that, which isn't healthy. Now, with the North Node moving through your 10th house of Pisces, which governs your career, your public image, reputation, and just the larger impact you want to make in the world, this is a time to step out of your shell and move towards something more visionary, more meaningful, and purpose-driven. You're being asked to loosen your grip on the need for a perfectly stable home base and start embracing the unknowns that come with stepping into your calling in the world. So that might mean pursuing a career that's more spiritual, or perhaps linked to healing or the creative arts, or service orientated in some way. And it's likely about redefining success, not just as status or achievement, but as making an impact through compassion, through art, through emotional depth. You may feel called to work in fields that involve helping others, or working with intuition, or inspiring people through your presence. Whatever path calls to you now, it likely won't be clearly defined or neatly structured, because this is Pisces. And that's part of the lesson. It's learning to trust your instincts and your inner calling, even when you don't have a clear roadmap. And practically, it's a time to stretch into leadership, into visibility, and look at those long-term goals that may feel intimidating, but ultimately fulfilling, right? You want to say yes to the opportunities that ask you to be seen at this time, or ask you to take on more responsibility, especially if they align with your values and your imagination and your creative side. And you may need to let go of trying to control your home environment, or waiting for the perfect conditions before you go after what you want in the world, because it's never going to be perfect. And because the conditions may never be perfect, it's why you have to say, okay, my calling can't wait anymore. I have to go after this. Now, as a Gemini rising, the North Node, like I said, is transiting your 10th house in Pisces. So it's pushing you to grow your career, to grow your public image, and to expand your sense of purpose, but in a way that's emotionally aligned and intuitive and meaningful. But what adds power to this transit is that Jupiter, the ruler of Pisces, is in your second house of Cancer, where it's exalted. And it's going to bring support to your finances, to your self-worth, as well as your personal value system. This means that as you step into this new chapter professionally, you're also being asked to believe in your own value and to build the material security you need from a place of emotional alignment. You could find that when you pursue work that's, feels nurturing to you and feels aligned with your deeper purpose, then the financial rewards follow, as well as personal confidence. And Jupiter here is going to help you trust that you can build real lasting success, but not by pushing, but by choosing what feels right for you at a core level. And if you lean into that, by the end of this cycle in 2026, you're going to find yourself stepping into a version of success like you never imagined. One that's not just about status, but about resonance. So let go of the emotional clutter. Stop overanalyzing your past, and really push away the urge to stay hidden. Because right now you're being asked to rise and lead, but ultimately serve others, but from the heart. And that's where your future lies. That's where you're being called to move forward. So this began a few months ago. And if you've seen signs of this manifesting already in your life, please drop a comment below. Let me know if this resonated. Share your story. I'd really love to hear how things are going. And good luck. Okay, Cancer rising. So you're quickly becoming one of my favorite signs. You are all the main character energy for the next year or so. You have a lot going on. So as a Cancer rising, you have the South Node moving through your third house of Virgo, while the North Node is traveling through your ninth house of Pisces, right? And this is going to continue until mid-2026. This transit is asking you to shift away from mental busyness or overanalysis and just hyper-focus on the daily tiny details of life. And instead, it's asking you to open your mind to a bigger, more expansive worldview, right? The third house rules communication and your immediate environment. It's how you learn, it's local travel, and the way you process and organize information. And with the South Node here, you may find yourself stuck in overthinking or micromanaging conversations or just obsessing over facts and logistics. You might feel overwhelmed by an influx of constant messages, emails, errands that need to be done, and just a lot of mental noise. And yet still, you're going to feel like you're not getting anywhere meaningful. So busy, but no impact. So what you're being called to do is release the need to have all the answers right now, or to always be right or precise and exact in how you communicate. You will likely also notice that your usual communication patterns or your relationship with siblings, coworkers, or neighbors, people in your local environment feels strained or just old. This is the time to step back and ask, am I just spinning my wheels here because it feels familiar? Or is there something more meaningful that I'm being called to explore in this area? Now, the ninth house, where the North Node is transiting of Pisces for you, is now pointing you towards growth through faith, through wisdom, and really expanding your big picture thinking. The ninth house rules philosophy and long distance travel, belief systems, higher education, as well as spiritual and religious understanding. You're being invited now to zoom out and look at life through a broader, more intuitive lens, right? Instead of focusing on all the small facts. It's a time to follow your curiosity and to pursue a more expansive, deeper truth for yourself. It's a great time to connect with ideas or cultures that expand your worldview and expand your perspective, because that's what the North Node here is pushing you towards. You might feel called to study something that's more soulful or spiritual or religious or just more imaginative in some way, or to pursue a path of teaching or writing or some form of spiritual development at this time, and find yourself craving just more meaning in life, whether that's through travel, a new educational pursuit, or a deeper connection to your intuition and inner guidance and religious beliefs. But the key is to move away from intellectual control and more towards emotional and spiritual truth, right? Less logic based, this makes sense, more this feels more aligned and truthful on a soul level. Now, practically speaking, this means you may need to take a break from like constant information consumption. If you're doom scrolling, if you're on Instagram or YouTube or TikTok all day, it may be a time to pull back a little bit and give your mind room to breathe. Books do exist still. Instead of over obsessing on the details and being overwhelmed by all of this constant influx and intake of data and information, like find time to quiet your thoughts and focus on asking the bigger questions of life, right? Read more poetry, read more philosophy, read more, religious texts. Take a class in something that inspires rather than just informs. Consider journaling or a spiritual study at this time, right? Or just connecting with people who see the world differently than you do. And this could be on travel, like it could be going on a retreat. It could be, cross-cultural experiences that just open up and expand your worldview and way of thinking. And it would touch something in you that you didn't know that was there. So let go of needing every answer to be provable, right? Those Virgo traits, and start learning how to trust what just feels better at a deeper level. Now, like I said, as a Cancer rising, the North Node is in your 9th house of Pisces, encouraging you to expand your worldview, deepen your spiritual or philosophical beliefs, and pursue experiences that stretch your perspective, whether through travel, study, personal growth, right? We covered all that. But what gives the transit extra strength is that Jupiter, the ruler of Pisces, is in your 1st house in Cancer, and it's exalted, bringing a very powerful boost to your presence, your confidence, and just your overall sense of direction in life. This is going to support you into stepping into that larger version of yourself, one that is more visible and more expressive and guided by this newfound inner wisdom. So as you explore new belief systems or directions, Jupiter in your 1st house helps you trust yourself more and move forward with more clarity and optimism in that area. So it's a time to follow what inspires you and to take bold steps in your personal development and allow your this new expanding sense of identity that Jupiter is cultivating to really shape that path ahead. And if you do that, by the end of the transit, you're going to likely feel less tied to all these old patterns of thinking and much more connected to this new worldview that offers perspective and purpose in your life. So don't be afraid to step out of your intellectual comfort zone. Your growth now lies not in mastering the little things and, reciting quotes and scriptures. It's really about leaning into what feels right and surrendering to the bigger picture at play. Now, you would have started feeling this in, early mid-January. We're in June now. So if this resonates and you've started to experience this, please drop a comment below and let me know how this is going for you. I'd really love to hear, your stories and how it's unfolding. And like the video if this resonated, and good luck. Okay, Leo rising. So if you're a Leo rising, then the South Node is moving through your 2nd house of Virgo, while the North Node travels your 8th house of Pisces, all the way through to mid-2026. So this transit is calling you to release your grip on material stability and self-reliance and just rigid definitions of what security means to you. And it's asking you instead to lean into deeper emotional trust and shared resources and inner transformation, right? The 2nd house is about your money, your possessions, your value system, how you value yourself, and how you build a sense of self-worth through tangible results. And with the South Node here, you may realize that clinging to control over your income or your routines or just productivity is actually keeping you stuck. You might feel overworked or overly focused on like your finances and the details around your finances, but still at the same time unsatisfied on a deeper level. And this period is going to bring up questions like, what am I really worth? Or is my sense of worth or sense of security built on something lasting or just some external structure? And it's not uncommon for you to experience disruptions around money at this time, like unexpected expenses or changes in income, or just a general sense that what once felt solid is now uncertain. And if you've been too focused on doing everything yourself or measuring your value by only your output, the South Node is going to show you where that model is just no longer working. Now, the North Node in your 8th house of Pisces is inviting you into a more vulnerable area, but ultimately more empowering as well. The 8th house rules intimacy and shared resources and shared finances, as well as emotional depth and transformation. It's the house of healing. And it's asking you to let go of total self-sufficiency and to begin learning how to trust others and share power and open yourself to deeper emotional experiences. This might mean relying more on a partner's support or income, or facing fears around debt or financial interdependence. It could be a time when you confront buried emotional patterns that affect your relationship with money and control, right? And you may find yourself drawn more to healing or spiritual work or astrology or just exploring the metaphysical side of life. So think therapy, shadow work, or any deep process that helps you get in touch with what's under the surface, right? The 8th house is naturally ruled by Scorpio. So let go of the need to have everything figured out logically or materially. Pisces in the 8th asks you to surrender control and embrace uncertainty, right? Trusting that what's falling away is making space for something more profound to emerge. And practically speaking, this means loosening your attachment to how you earn or how you save or produce as some measure of success. It's time to start exploring where your real value comes from, right? Whether that's emotionally or relationally or spiritually. Open up to financial collaboration at this time and seek support when you need it. Allow yourself to feel instead of always having to fix, and be willing to go inward and go deeper, even if it means letting go of old identities that are tied to themes of control or even competence. Now, as a Leo rising, the North Node is transiting your 8th house in Pisces, as I said, right? Guiding you towards emotional depth, intimacy, transformation, and just a healthier relationship with shared resources and trust in general. It's a period where you're meant to let go of rigid control and allow yourself to be more vulnerable and more spiritually attuned. But supporting this growth is Jupiter, right? The ruler of Pisces. And Jupiter is currently in your 12th house, Cancer, where it's exalted. So this is going to offer profound emotional and spiritual protection for you at this time. This placement is going to encourage deep healing through solitude and through rest and spirituality and inner reflection. You may find that breakthroughs come not through pushing hard and pushing forward, but through the quiet moments, through your dreams or your spiritual practices. And Jupiter in the 12th also supports you in releasing past baggage, whether that's emotional, karmic, or psychological. And it's going to directly empower the 8th house transformation that you're being called into at this time. So trust the process, even if it's happening behind the scenes, which it likely is. And go inward and know that growth is unfolding, even if you can't fully see it yet. It's slow. And if you do that, by the end of this cycle, you're going to be in a much stronger place. And not because you held everything together, you white knuckled it, but because you learned how to let go. Let go of the things that you can't control and embrace deeper connection, not only with others, but with yourself. So ultimately, this is a time to shed old definitions of security and to open yourself to something more intimate and more spiritual and ultimately more transformative. So this theme would have started to come to light in mid-January. And if this resonated with you or you're seeing signs of this unfold in your life already, please drop a comment below and let me know how this is unfolding for you. And good luck. Okay, my Virgo rising. So for you, the South Node is moving through your first house of Virgo, while the North Node travels through your seventh house of Pisces. And this is going to continue until mid-2026. So this is a major one for you, right? This is asking you to shift your focus away from over-identifying with self-reliance and control and perfectionism as it relates to yourself, and towards building meaningful and emotionally connected relationships. The first house represents your sense of self. It's how you present yourself to the world, your body, your personal approach to life. With the South Node here, old habits of needing to do everything yourself or being overly critical of yourself or even others, and needing to just have everything just right in your own personal world is going to start to feel draining. And you may notice that your default way of operating, right, being practical, responsible, very vigilant, is just no longer bringing the results or the inner peace that you want or that it once did. Now, this transit can bring up identity shifts. You might question who you are outside of the roles that you've mastered, or feel like the way you've always approached life just isn't working the same way anymore. And it's time to reinvent yourself and let go of this older version. You may also feel more aware of how self-criticism or trying to do it all alone has affected your relationships. And not only affected your relationships, but also would have affected your personal well-being and your sense of joy and happiness in the world. The lesson here is that you don't have to figure everything out on your own, and that letting others in doesn't mean losing yourself. And that's where the North Node in Pisces in your seventh house of partnerships comes in. You're being guided to learn how to trust, how to soften and co-create with another. This isn't just about romantic relationships either. It can include business partners or clients, even close friends, or anyone you're in a very close one-on-one dynamic with. And Pisces in the seventh house asks you to open your heart and listen more deeply and let your connections be guided by compassion and emotional truth, rather than by the Virgo traits of logic or efficiency. It's about forming bonds that may not look perfect on paper, but they feel very meaningful and they feel supportive. And practically speaking, this means making space for more emotional vulnerability in your relationships. Instead of always trying to fix others or correct others or even yourself, this is a time to lean more into empathy and to trust more. You may be called to release old relational patterns that were once based on control or judgment or some set of rigid expectations that you had for the other. And it wants you to allow more fluid and soulful dynamics to emerge. If you're single, this could be a time when a really new karmic significant relationship enters your life that's going to teach you how to love in a more unconditional way. And if you're in a relationship, it may shift into a deeper emotional or spiritual territory. And it may challenge you to soften and connect without needing everything to be perfect or to make sense. Now, like I said, you're a Virgo rising, and the North Node is transiting your 7th house in Pisces. So it's encouraging you to grow through relationships, to grow through partnerships, and emotional connection with others. It's a time to soften your approach in your one-on-one dynamics and to let go of those rigid expectations, like I said. But the key, and this is very important, is that supporting this growth is Jupiter, the ruler of Pisces, currently in your 11th house in Cancer, where it's exalted. So this is going to bring powerful support from your friendships, from your networks, and to your long-term goals. This means that the more you invest in genuine community and emotionally aligned alliances with the other, the more you're going to naturally attract meaningful relationships. People in your social circle are going to play a very key role in guiding or supporting your partnership journey. And Jupiter here reminds you that you're not meant to navigate the chapter alone. You need to lean into community and trust others. You open the door more to those heart-centered and spiritually fulfilling connections when you lead with trust. And if you do that, by the end of the cycle, you're going to find that you're more open and more connected and more at peace, not only in yourself, but in your relationships. Because you learned how to truly connect with others in a way that honors not only your needs, but also theirs. So let go of the pressure or the need to appear flawless, like you're perfect, because no one is. And understand that your growth now lies in just surrendering to love and empathy and, being in that kind of partnership that just feels right on a soul level. Now, you would have started feeling themes of this in mid-January when the node shifted. So if this video resonated with you, or you have any stories to share about how this is unfolding for you, please comment below and let me know. I would love to hear. And engagement always does help the channel and let the algorithm know that, this is worth sharing with other astrology lovers. And yeah, good luck, Virgo. And let me know how it goes. Okay, my Libra rising. So I guess first of all, apologies when I'm recording and where I'm recording. The pollen count is off the charts, and I feel very, very nasally in this recording, so I apologize. But anyway, as a Libra rising, you have the South Node moving through your 12th house of Virgo, right? And the North Node is traveling through your 6th house of Pisces, and it's going to be here through mid-2026. And what this transit is doing is pulling you out of isolation or escapism, right? Like addictive behind the scenes habits, and asking you to become more present and more purposeful and grounded in your everyday life. The 12th house is the realm of solitude and retreat, right? It's the house of endings and the subconscious. And with the South Node here, you may feel weighed down by old emotional patterns or hidden fears or just avoidant behaviors that have kept you disconnected from responsibility or structure or practicality. And this could show up as self-sabotaging behaviors, burnout from overgiving, procrastination, or just simply feeling like you've been drifting without a clear sense of direction. It's likely a time that you're going to feel like you've been operating behind the scenes for too long. Maybe you've been quietly helping others or carrying some emotional weight in silence. It's likely hiding parts of yourself out of fear of either judgment or overwhelm. And while the 12th house can be a place of healing, too much time here can lead to disconnection from the physical world and even your own potential. So the South Node is asking you to stop withdrawing and start engaging more intentionally with your real life routines and your health. And that's where the North Node in your 6th house of Pisces comes in. This is your call to show up for your body, for your tasks, your time, but ultimately your well-being. The sixth house is about everyday work and habits, physical health, and the way you contribute to the world in a tangible, real, helpful way. But with Pisces here, it's not about rigid discipline or harsh self-criticism. It's about finding flow and purpose in your daily efforts. You're learning how to bring compassion and meaning into your routine. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to show up with care and intention. Now, practically speaking, this is the time to build a healthier lifestyle. Even if it's simple, right? Commit to regular meals or a meal plan, healthy eating, better sleep, or setting manageable work hours to avoid burnout. It's also a great time to create routines or rituals that nourish you, like stretching or spiritual practices, or just being very mindful of how you manage your tasks. And you may be called to work in a healing or service-oriented field as well, or just simply bring more empathy into the way you work with others. So start looking at how your small everyday actions are part of a larger purpose, because this isn't about hustle. This is about meaningful consistency. And to reiterate, as a Libra rising, your North Node's transiting your sixth house in Pisces, right? It's encouraging you to build this more intuitive, compassionate, and spiritually aligned approach to your daily routines, your work, and health. It's a time to soften the grip on perfectionism and embrace a rhythm that supports both your physical as well as your emotional health. But what empowers this process is that Jupiter, the ruler of Pisces, is in your 10th house of Cancer, where it's exalted. So this is offering very strong support for career growth, public recognition, and your long-term goals. Which tells me, as you focus on creating a more balanced and meaningful day-to-day, your professional world is going to begin to thrive. The more emotionally aligned and intentional you are in how you work and how you serve, then the more visible and impactful your career is going to become. And Jupiter here is reminding you that real success comes when you care for your inner world as much as your outer results. And if you put in that work, by the end of the cycle, you're going to feel much more rooted and more capable, more present in your everyday life as well. Ultimately, you're being asked to come out of the fog, out of the hiding of the 12th house, and into a space where you can serve and support others without losing yourself in the process. So it's time to stop waiting for that perfect moment and to start building something real, one step at a time. Because that is where you're being called to grow. Now, you would have first noticed signs and shifts of this happening in mid-January. We are now in June. So if this resonated, or you're seeing signs of this, or have seen signs of this playing out in your personal life, please drop a comment below. Let me know how it's gone, how it's going. I'd certainly love to hear. And good luck. Okay, Scorpio rising. So for you, the South Node is moving through your 11th house of Virgo, while the North Node is traveling through your 5th house of Pisces. And this is going to happen and occur and continue through mid-2026. This transit is encouraging you to shift your focus from the group dynamics, those obligations within groups, social expectations, and instead to reconnect with your heart, your creativity, and what genuinely brings you joy. The 11th house governs your networks, your long-term goals, community involvement, and the way you seek validation through your role within larger groups or systems. And with the South Node here, you may feel like you've outgrown certain social circles or group dynamics, or maybe dreams and plans for the future that once felt aligned now aren't resonating and maybe feel too rigid. And you would notice that, trying to do what makes sense or to fit in just no longer feels fulfilling to you. And in fact, is likely quietly draining your energy. Now, There's a tendency here to overthink your place in the world or to base your decisions on what others expect of you rather than what actually it is that you want. And you may feel overly responsible for helping others, right? Whether that's helping them achieve their goals while your own desires sit on the back burner or putting the group ahead of yourself. And the South Node is highlighting where you've been too focused on approval or outcomes or just the needs of the group or the collective. And where you now need to bring the attention back to yourself in a meaningful way. And that's where the North Node in the 5th house of Pisces comes in. This is now your invitation to reconnect with your creativity, your playfulness, your joy, even your romantic life, or even your children, depending upon how old you are and if you have them, right? It's about your capacity to express yourself freely and authentically. And the 5th house rules joy and love and self-expression in children. And children could be literal or symbolic. They could be creative projects or something of that sort, because the 5th house is anything that you create that comes from your body. Children are that, but so is a birdhouse, right? That was silly, I'm sorry. But Pisces here asks you to lead with imagination and emotion, right? Rather than the Virgo traits of logic and strategy. You're learning to express your heart without needing to explain or justify it. So this could mean picking up an old artistic hobby or letting yourself fall in love again. And that could be with a person or a passion. Or just simply allowing yourself to create for the sake of joy, right? Like, it doesn't have to be attached to productivity goals. And practically speaking, this is a time to say yes to experiences that just feel fun or feel fulfilling. Lean into things that feel creatively inspired to you. Even if they don't seem like useful or efficient on the surface, it doesn't matter. That's not what you're being called for, right? You have to let go of needing everything to have a purpose or a clear goal attached to it. So say yes to the person that asks you out on a date. Go to the dance class or the cooking class, spend time with your children, or anyone or anything that brings out the lighter, more joyful side of you, right? And the more you allow space for emotional and creative freedom, then the more you'll find aligned with what matters most to you. And like I said, Scorpio rising, right? Your North Node's transiting this 5th house of Pisces. So you're being encouraged to reconnect with joy, creativity, romance, right? And self-expression. And to let go of overthinking and trying to control how you're perceived. And, right, you're being called to follow what inspires you. But, and it's a big but, and it's important, supporting this growth is Jupiter, the ruler of Pisces. And it's currently in your 9th house of Cancer where it's exalted. So this is offering a very powerful support to expanding your beliefs or your worldview and seeking new horizons. So this means to me that your path to creativity and heart-led living is directly tied to your willingness to step into new experiences, whether through study, spiritual growth, travel, or just simply being open to broadening your perspectives. And Jupiter here encourages you to see life as an adventure again. It reminds you that when you allow yourself to believe in something bigger, your capacity for love and enjoyment, 5th house themes, expands with it. And if you lean into that energy, then by the time this transit concludes in mid-2026, you're going to realize that your deepest fulfillment in life doesn't come from managing outcomes or supporting everyone else's path but your own. No, it comes from honoring your own path, right? So you're being asked to soften a little bit and just enjoy. Let go of needing to fit into a bigger picture and instead let your heart lead through what brings you joy. And joy isn't selfish, right? It's essential for life and for people, to feel fulfillment in their life. So If this resonated with you, or you've been feeling or seeing themes of this manifest in your life since mid January, please drop a comment below and let me know. I would love to hear about your experiences, and good luck. Next up, my Sagittarius rising. So as a Sag rising, you have the South Node moving through your 10th house of Virgo, right? While the North Node is traveling through your 4th house of Pisces. And this is going to continue until mid-2026. And this nodal shift is pulling your energy away from public image, career ambition, and constantly striving in your work life, and asking you to return to your roots and reconnect with your emotional world and really focus on what truly feels like home to you and what supports you. The 10th house represents your professional life. It's your responsibilities, your status, and the roles you take on in the world. And with the South Node here, you may find yourself questioning your career path, or feeling burned out by overworking, or realizing that your drive for success has come at the expense of your inner peace or your home life in some way. And you may experience shifts in your career, right? A change in your public role, whether that's, leaving a job that doesn't feel aligned only to, step into a new role that does feel aligned. Or simply a sense that the goals you've been chasing no longer fulfill you. And this can be an uncomfortable realization, especially if you built your identity around your career, around achievement and recognition, or always having a clear plan for your career. And the South Node is showing you that it's time to let go of the need to prove yourself, to fix everything, or to maintain some perfect image in the eyes of others as it relates to your career. Now, at the same time, the North Node in Pisces is in your 4th house, guiding you inward. It's the time to nurture your emotional foundation in your home life, to tend to your family needs, and allow yourself to feel more than you manage. The 4th house is about family and inner security and the relationship you have with your most private self. The 4th house is the bottom of the chart. It's the most private part of the chart. And with Pisces here, you're learning to surrender to what you feel, not just what you can accomplish. It's a call to soften and to heal old emotional patterns as it relates to home or ancestry, and ultimately to create a home life that feels spiritually and emotionally nourishing, not just functional, right? The Virgo traits. And practically, this could mean spending more time at home, or moving, or reconnecting with family, or, simplifying your lifestyle in some way, or just focusing on healing yourself from an emotional perspective, especially if it's tied to any type of ancestral wounds or trauma. You may find yourself needing more rest at this time, more solitude, more time in nature, right? Your nervous system can be craving peace, even if your mind is still trying to chase all of this professional progress. So pay attention to that. You're not meant to abandon your goals. That's not what this is. But it is a season for grounding yourself in what feels more emotionally real and stable, not just external worldly success in your career. So, as a Sagittarius rising, the North Node transiting your 4th house in Pisces is telling you, shift your focus inward towards emotional healing and home life and creating a deeper sense of inner peace and security. It's a time to soften your pace a bit and prioritize your personal life, to reconnect with what feels nourishing and grounding to you. And supporting this process is Jupiter, the ruler of Pisces, that's currently in your 8th house of Cancer, where it's exalted. And Jupiter's offering profound support for this emotional transformation, for deep healing work, and bringing, luck and bounty to areas of shared resources. So this placement helps you process the old wounds and release fears around vulnerability and open yourself up more to trusting and intimate connections. And as you do the emotional work and allow yourself to be supported by others, you're going to find it easier to create the stable home life that you're craving. Jupiter in the 8th also supports financial healing and emotional renewal, which would only help you more in building from the inside out. So if you focus on that and do that work, by the end of this transit in mid-2026, you're going to realize that true success isn't just about what you build out in the world in your career. No, it's about whether you feel safe and whole and connected within your home and yourself and your family. So let go of the pressure to always feel like you have to perform or produce and put work first. You're being asked now to come home to yourself and to build your outer life from an inner place that's filled with trust and peace, because that's what you're being called towards. And you would have felt this calling starting around mid-January of this year. So that was about 6 months ago. And if you've experienced any of this, please drop a comment below. Let us know how this is unfolding for you. If this video resonated at all, please, like it or drop a comment, and just let us know and let me know how it's unfolding. And good luck. Okay, Capricorn rising. So for my Cap risings, the South Node is moving through your 9th house of Virgo, while the North Node travels your 3rd house of Pisces. And this is going to continue until mid-2026. And this shift in the nodes is pulling you away from any rigid belief systems that you held, or big picture planning, or maybe just a constant pursuit of higher knowledge or spirituality, and is guiding you towards being more present and emotionally connected in your everyday life. The 9th house is where you seek meaning and truth and expansion, often through travel, education, cross-cultural experiences, philosophy, and spiritual or religious systems. And the South Node here is going to help you realize that certain beliefs or ideals that you've held on to are no longer serving you. You might feel disillusioned with systems that you once trusted, or find that trying to figure everything out through logic alone or just like theories is leaving you more disconnected than fulfilled. And maybe that wasn't always the case, but it is now. And you may also notice a tendency to overthink or overcorrect your path, right? Constantly seeking answers in some faraway ideas or concepts or long-term plans, while missing the opportunities that are right in front of you and available, right? Your local environment of the 3rd house. So the South Node here asks you to release the need to always be right? To have the full picture, to have it all figured out, or think you have it all figured out, and to live by some specific philosophy that maybe no longer aligns with who it is that you find yourself becoming. Now, at the same time, the North Node in Pisces in your 3rd house is inviting you to slow down, right? Slow down within your local community, reconnect with your immediate environment, reconnect with your community, and just your everyday life and conversations with people in that, local environment. Because the 3rd house is all about communication. It's about learning through direct experience and building meaningful, real connections with others around you. And Pisces here is going to bring a softer, more intuitive quality to your mind, your voice, and your communication style, right? It's going to be less about intellectual accuracy and more about emotional resonance and feeling it. You're being asked to listen more closely, not only to yourself, but to others, and then to speak from a place of empathy, not just expertise or cold hard facts, right? It's leaning more into the Pisces energy than the Virgo energy. And practically, this might look like focusing on communication, right? It could be creating a writing project, or starting a podcast or a YouTube channel, right? something around creativity and communications, as opposed to maybe chasing some large, massive academic goal. It could mean being more involved in your neighborhood, right? Starting conversations with your siblings or your peers, maybe people that you've drifted far from and now are coming back around. In some ways, this could also be about developing a spiritual or intuitive practice that helps you process thoughts and communicate in a more gentle way. It's also a great time to just cultivate softer communication habits, right? Less about facts and fact checking and more about how you feel and leading with empathy in how you relate and communicate with others, right? You have to let go of the pressure to always feel like you have to be the authority and the person that knows everything. And lean more into being compassionate and open-minded and just more curious in all of these daily interactions that are governed by the third house. And as a Capricorn rising, the North Node is transiting the third house in Pisces, right? So we've established this. It's encouraging you to shift how you learn, communicate, and connect with your local environment. It's a time to move away from rigid thinking or an over-reliance on logic and instead embrace softer, more intuitive ways of communicating and expressing yourself. You're being asked to trust your inner voice and speak from a place of empathy rather than logic and analysis. However, and this is big, supporting this growth is Jupiter, because Jupiter is the ruler of Pisces, and Jupiter is currently in your 7th house in Cancer, where it's exalted. So this is now telling me that there's this powerful energy being brought about by Jupiter to your one-on-one relationships. So this suggests to me that the more you open up in your communication style and in your interactions, the more meaningful partnerships, both personally and professionally, can support your growth. So conversations, contracts, collaborations, all of those 7th house themes that Jupiter is expanding, right, may carry an emotional depth and spiritual tint to them. Because Jupiter here is going to help you attract people who truly get you and who can expand your thinking in, more Jupiterian, heartfelt, and encouraging ways. So this combo of leaning into the Piscean energy and how you communicate, and Jupiter bringing its blessings to the 7th house of relationships, how you communicate in your relationships go hand in hand. And if you consciously work with that and lean into the energy that, Pisces and Jupiter are asking you to lean into, then by the end of this cycle, you're going to feel much more emotionally attuned and more grounded, not only in your daily life, but in how you're connected to your own voice, but also in your closest partnerships and who you attract. You don't need to have all the answers all the time, and that's okay. Because right now, this chapter is more about staying present with what's right in front of you and in your local environment, and learning that wisdom isn't always found in books or faraway philosophies, right? In the 9th house. Sometimes it's just in a single conversation with your neighbor or a moment of quiet insight, right? And the more you speak honestly from the heart and lean into that Piscean energy as it relates to your communication style, the more it's going to open up the magic that Jupiter is trying to bless your 7th house with in terms of cultivating existing relationships and bringing in even new ones that'll support you, more profoundly. So you would have first felt these energies in mid-January. So we're about 6 months out, and if you have any experiences or you feel this manifesting in your own life, please drop a comment below and let me know how this is unfolding for you. And good luck. Now, if you're an Aquarius rising, then the South Node is moving through your 8th house of Virgo, while the North Node transit is traveling through your 2nd house of Pisces. And these energies are going to be at play until roughly mid 2026, so for another year. And this shift is asking you to move away from, emotional entanglements, dependence on others, any type of like crisis-driven thinking that you've been employing. And instead, it's asking you to focus on building a more stable, peaceful, and self-sustaining foundation. The eighth house is associated with shared resources and emotional vulnerability. Deep transformation is here, right? Death and rebirth. Themes like debt, loss, as well as psychological intensity. And with the South Node here, you may be coming out of a period where you've had to deal with heavy emotional or financial issues. Maybe you've relied too much on other people for support, or been pulled into complicated dynamics that left you feeling drained or disempowered. And this transit now is about releasing the need to just analyze everything to death or fix what it is you can't control. You may have been in therapy or digging into emotional patterns or, evaluating financial dependencies that you have or power struggles that are just no longer serving you. And the South Node is now showing you that it's time to stop obsessing over what's broken and what's hidden beneath the surface. And it's time to start putting your energy into building something stable for yourself. And that's where the North Node in the second house of Pisces comes in. The second house is all about your income, your personal resources, how you value yourself. It's your self-worth and your financial independence in this world. So Pisces here adds a spiritual dimension to that, right? It's not just about how much money you make, but whether your relationships with money and self-value are aligned with who you are and your deeper truth. You're being called to learn how to trust your intuition when it comes to financial decisions and to allow flow instead of control and to build a sense of inner security that isn't based on someone else's support or approval. And practically speaking, this is a time to develop habits and income streams that are sustainable and rooted in what you truly value. So focusing on creating a peaceful financial environment, right? One where you're not driven by fear or scarcity mindset or even competition is going to be important. And it may be helpful to review your spending at this time, right? Maybe you need to establish more financial boundaries, or maybe you decide to seek work that's more meaningful or feels more meaningful or is more spiritual in some way rather than just practical. It's also a time to rebuild your self-worth from the inside out, right? If you've been giving your power away emotionally or even financially, then this is your chance to reclaim it. And not by fighting, but by grounding yourself in your own value. You have to know what your worth is. Because when you know that, other people treat you accordingly for the most part. And those that don't, then get rid of them, right? They're psychos. Now, it's a stupid joke. Now, as an Aquarius rising, to recap, right, your North Node's transiting your second house in Pisces. So it's urging you to build a more intuitive, value-driven relationship with money, self-worth, and ultimately just personal security in the world. You're being called to trust your inner guidance when it comes to what it is you invest in, whether that's energetically, emotionally, or financially. And the interesting thing is that supporting this growth is Jupiter, because Jupiter is the ruler of Pisces. And Jupiter is currently in your sixth house in Cancer, where it's exalted. So it's there trying to help you create healthy and emotionally supportive daily routines, not only in your work life and work habits, but also in your health, things that increase your sense of stability in the world. So this combination is very powerful, especially for improving both your income as well as your inner confidence. Now, this is especially true when you allow nurturing and flow into your day-to-day efforts rather than sticking to any routines or structures that are just overly rigid. Now, I also want to mention that your chart ruler, Saturn, is also transiting the third house at this time, right? So when you layer that on top of all of this, it tells me that at the same time, you're being encouraged to refine your communication and to take responsibility for your mindset and to stay grounded in your learning and also your planning. So together, all of these transits are really trying to help you build real world stability by balancing these Piscean intuitive values with disciplined thinking and practical action. And if you lean into that, then by the end of this cycle in mid 2026, you're going to feel way more confident in your ability not only to support yourself, but much more clear on what truly matters to you. So my advice would be to let go of the drama, eliminate debt where you have it. Don't overanalyze every emotional thought and feeling you have, right? You don't need to fix everything that's broken at once. You just need to build something real right now. That's what you're being called on to do. And that next chapter of doing that begins with trusting your worth and investing in your own self and your own peace to create that life that supports who it is you're becoming. And you would have first felt these energies starting to take hold in mid-January. And here we are, 6 months later. So if this resonated with you or you've seen signs of this in your life already, please drop a comment below and share. I'd love to hear. And good luck. Okay, Pisces rising. So you are last, but you are the stars of the show. So maybe I'll do a little bit extra here. I don't think anyone listens all the way through anyway, so no one's going to know, right? But anyway, so as a Pisces rising, you have the North Node moving through your first house, right? Pisces. And the South Node is moving through your 7th house in Virgo. And this is going to continue through mid-2026. And this is going to be a deeply personal and identity-focused transit for you, right? It's going to be one that's calling you to reclaim yourself after years of filtering your choices through the lens of others. And the 7th and the first house axis is the relationship axis. It's you and the other. And, you just came out of an Aries, Libra, nodal axis transit that, would have had similar themes, but just hitting different houses. And now the emphasis is really being hit hard as it hits your first and your 7th. So the North Node now in your first house is simply saying it's time to put you first. And with the South Node in your 7th house of Virgo, you're being asked to release any deeply ingrained patterns around over-accommodation, people-pleasing, or perfectionism in your relationships, right? The tendency to define yourself based on your role in someone else's life is no longer going to matter to you as much. You may have been the one who always adjusted, or who fixed things, or who over-explained, or who sacrificed your own desires to maintain harmony or uphold some ideal of what a good partner should be. And that mode of relating, especially if it's built on self-sacrifice or living up to someone else's expectations or even guilt, is just no longer sustainable. And you're going to notice that during this transit, certain relationships are going to begin to shift. People who once felt central to your life may pull away, or you may feel the urge to step back from those relationships where you're not being met emotionally or energetically halfway. And this isn't a punishment, right? For you or them, it's a course correction. And the South Node reveals where you've held on out of habit or fear or just what's comfortable, right? It could also have been holding on because of old karmic patterns. And now this transit is likely to expose where you've compromised too much, or where you've stayed too long in a relationship, or where you've edited yourself too often to fit someone else's idea of who you should be in life. Now, at the same time, the North Node in Pisces in your first house is inviting you into a new way of being, one where your identity, your instincts, and presence are going to be led more by intuition and compassion and being emotionally aligned. You're being asked to fully embody who you are without apology, and to let go of the pressure to prove yourself through service to others. This is about rediscovering your voice and your presence and establishing or reestablishing your autonomy. It's about tuning in to your emotional intelligence and trusting your gut and not needing to explain away your feelings just to keep the peace. Why? They're your feelings. Like, you don't have to justify them. It doesn't mean you have to be a jerk about things, but you have a right to stand in your own autonomy and feelings. So this is, if you can't already tell, a very powerful time for self-reinvention. You may feel pulled to change how you present yourself to the world, whether that's through your appearance, your tone, the boundaries you set, or just your overall lifestyle. And don't be surprised if you feel a strong urge to simplify your life at this time and reclaim your space, or even move in a more creatively or spiritually fulfilling direction, right? All of these Piscean traits. And you are Pisces, so it makes sense, right? And the North Node here isn't about loud declarations of independence, like, I'm doing this my way now. No, it's really about more quiet alignment, right? You're not pushing others away. You're simply pulling yourself back home to yourself. Like, you're just prioritizing yourself. And from a practical standpoint, this means prioritizing your needs first. So if you've been operating from a default setting of, what do I have to do? What do they need from me? Then now is the time to shift that question to, what do I need to feel whole and grounded? What do I need out of this relationship? What matters to me? And that might mean saying no more often, or creating more time for yourself in solitude, or just exploring new creative outlets that maybe feel aligned with who it is you're becoming, not who you've been told to be up until this point. And you may also feel drawn to spiritual practices, right? The occult, astrology, therapy, one-on-one counseling, journaling, or just artistic exploration in some way as a way to get back in touch with your core and who you are. It really is about coming home to yourself this year. So this is also a period where assertiveness becomes essential. And you're Pisces, so it's not going to be the aggressive kind, but it's going to be the kind that says, yeah, this is who I am, and that's enough. Oh, you don't like it? Okay, that's fine. But I'm cool with that, right? Like, it's like that type of vibe. And you're learning to stand in your truth without needing to explain or justify or fix anyone else in the process. And you know this already. I mean, Pisces energy is gentle. But it's also very wise, and you're not a fool, right? So trust your feelings and trust the timing, and just trust what you quietly already know. And you know what I'm talking about. So as a Pisces rising, to recap, the North Node is transiting your first house, and it's asking you to fully step into your trust of intuition, your identity, and to lead with your authentic self. And this journey is supported by Jupiter, right? Your chart ruler. Because we are talking North Node in Pisces. And Jupiter is currently in your fifth house of Cancer, where it's exalted. So this gives an interesting twist to things, right? You're getting this powerful boost to your creativity, your joy, your romantic life, even your entrepreneurial pursuits. And as you become more confident expressing who you truly are, Jupiter is going to help you do it in a way that's emotionally fulfilling for you and that feels heart-centered. So whether you're creating art or deepening a connection with a child, or exploring a new romance or passion project, this energy brings support for expressing yourself through your truth and through your joy and creativity. And at the same time, Saturn's in your second house, grounding this growth by teaching you to take responsibility for how you value yourself and your self-worth and also your finances. And while you're being called to lead from the heart and step into this true version of yourself, Saturn is also helping you to build a stable foundation beneath it. So the message is clear. You're meant to shine at this time and express yourself fully, but in a way that is sustainable and supported and ultimately aligned with what truly matters to you. And if you stay true to that energy by the end of this in mid-2026, you're likely going to look back and realize that you've reclaimed a part of yourself that somewhere along the line got lost in trying to hold everything together for others. Relationships that are rooted in mutual respect and emotional authenticity, they're going to be fine and they'll likely thrive. But any relationships that were based on obligation or guilt or control are going to naturally dissolve. And that's okay. This isn't a time for clinging to old relationships that aren't working. It's a time for becoming yourself again and leaning into the relationships that truly support you and value you for who you are, not who they want you to be or what you can give or contribute to them. So this really is a time to return to yourself and to the version of you that doesn't need to be fixed or adjusted or filtered through someone else's lenses. You're being called to show up fully, to trust yourself and let that guide not only your own path, but you also guide your relationships, not the other way around, where the relationship is guiding you. And the more you do that, the more naturally the right people will gravitate towards you, not because of what you give, but because of who you are. And that's much healthier. So, like I said, you would have first felt these energies starting around January 12th of this year. We're about 6 months in. Let me know how this has manifested for you, if this reading resonated. I hope it did. I did give you a little bit extra time, I think, maybe a minute or two. But you deserve it. You're the star of the show for this one. So drop a comment. Let me know how it's going. Good luck. All right, well, that wraps up our look at the North Node in Pisces and the South Node in Virgo for 2025 through 2026. Remember, it's a time to loosen your grip and trust your intuition and release the pressure to have it all figured out. The universe is asking us to soften at this time and to feel and reconnect with the part of us that believes in something bigger than just logic. And if any of this helps or resonated, please drop a comment below. I'd love to hear how this nodal shift is already showing up in your life and what it is you're called to be letting go of, as well as move towards. And as always, if you found this helpful, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss the next video. There's always a lot more coming your way, and it really helps to tell the algorithm to put these videos in front of other astrology lovers such as yourself. So thank you for watching. Good luck, and I will see you in the next video.